Greetings, this is Fowlenheart, and this is IGN's Monster Hunter Wilds review. Now, I would typically give IGN a wide berth and not really pay any attention to what they're doing. However, I saw a quick snippet of this from an Asmongold reaction. I didn't watch the whole reaction because the reviewer said something at one particular point that I really want to comment on. Now, to give you a bit of a history bit with me with this series, I have been playing Monster Hunter for a long time. You can see the collection up there, including the Monster Hunter PlayStation 2 game, which was the first game ever made, and very different to what even came afterwards in the West. There were like 3 games on the PlayStation 2, we only got the one of them, and then after that it was the PlayStation Portable. And if you talk to most old school Monster Hunter players, the PlayStation Portable entries is typically where they start. But my old ass was playing it since the PlayStation 2. Yes, this is my I've been here since Vanilla WoW moment. The Monster Hunter series has changed a lot over the years, and for the most part for the better, up until World. Now, I loved World. It was my game of the year, I believe, in one of my top 5 videos. In top 5, games of the year videos. However, I don't really like the direction World took the series. Never wish for the things you love to become popular, because the moment they do, they go downhill. We've seen this time and time again, and Monster Hunter is the same. Now, I caved recently, and I pre-ordered Monster Hunter Wilds, because it's Monster Hunter, and it's legitimately my favorite game series of all time. I've been playing it pretty much all my life, and I have loved every single one of them. And that's all I'm going to say for now until we get into the review, because I am going to go into something once he gets to a specific thing. So let's just kick back, listen to this review, and I'll tell you my thoughts as someone who's been playing the game in the West anyway since the very beginning. So yeah, here we go.
After the massive success of both Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter Rise,
this is water, believe it or not.
Do whatever it can to welcome that wider audience into the next frontier. That's exactly what Monster Hunter Wilds does.
It's very, very interesting how he starts off talking about Monster Hunter World. Because up until Monster Hunter World, this was a series that the West completely fucking ignored. Nintendo did a little bit to kind of bring up its popularity, because unlike Sony, Nintendo actually advertised the fucking games. So we actually received quite a few new players during the Wii U and 3DS era, when we had like the online Miiverse or whatever it was called thing, and it was really great. The Monster Hunter community was fucking amazing back then, because it was the old school Monster Hunter community like myself welcoming, fuck me, I can't say that word, welcoming in a bunch of newbies. And it was great. A lot of people super helpful, helping out new players, telling them like the basics and how to start the game, because Monster Hunter has never been good at introducing new players to the series. Like in the very first game, you had to like manually put stuff into the chest, and I don't even think the game even told you about the chest properly. So I actually spent a good portion of the original Monster Hunter game when I first played just carrying around equipment and like trading things out. Like inventory management when I got things on quests, and then building what I could, long before I realized, oh, I could actually store stuff in the chest. Bit of a pain in the ass back then, but Monster Hunter's always been a terrible series for new players to get into. It's always been really, really bad at it, including its quest design. I know a few people have tried to play it, and they were put off even by the better entries in the series, because the first number of quests were things like go out and find mushrooms and find herbs. You didn't even get like your first proper hunt quest until I think like the 2 or 3 star bracket, because the first stars were just teaching you how to play the game. So it was really boring and obtuse for a lot of new players, unless you clicked with it like people like me and really learned over time how to play, because the internet wasn't reliable back then like it is now. But yeah, most Monster Hunter fans now are people that jumped on with World and Rise and then started talking about builds and the most damage you can possibly do in a single attack. Yeah, and then the monster one-shots you because you're built to kill things as quick as possible, like this is a speedrunning game. Like, people are out competing each other in terms of like competing with each other as to who can do the most damage, and then they all die because they're built for DPS and not for function. And here's me, an old school player, using things like windproof and earplugs and shit like that. You know, the shit that allows you more uptime so you can over time do more damage. But this is a debate a lot of people have had. But builds were never a thing back in the day outside of like early G rank, where you would have like a mixed build to get as the most white sharpness as you possibly could, because you fucking needed it. But that was kind of it. Builds were never a thing. It really became a thing in World due to its admittedly pretty fun skill mixing system. That was probably the best iteration of that they had done. The problem with it is, due to the popularity of the series, Monster Hunter World turned the Monster Hunter community to a very niche and welcoming to new players and super fucking friendly community into the Dark Souls community. And where everyone is so concerned about being the best and being viewed as the best and the most skilled and the most capable, that everyone's just kind of like a toxic asshole in the Monster Hunter community now, because they're all competing with each other as to who has the biggest dick. When old school fans were just like, oh cool, new people are playing the game that is super niche. Cool, come and join our niche little hobby. Like, you're going to enjoy it. It's going to be great. We'll hunt together. Like, I'll teach you how to play the game. That's how the community used to be, and now it is just, I have the most damage! Watch how I do the most damage with a single strike, yeah! It's just like, okay. Can you tell I'm bitter? Anyway, we haven't even... I am full-on Asmongolding right now. Let's go. We haven't even started the fucking video, and I've already gone into a rant.
Out the already excellent process of turning big scary dragons into silly little hats to be faster, more flexible, and less fiddly than ever before. The other side of those dual blades, however, is that Wilds is light on any real challenge, even for what I'd expect at launch, never asking me to think hard about my equipment. But while the monsters may not pose much of a threat this time around, smart tweaks to combat still mean the act of carving them up has rarely felt better.
That's interesting that, like, I don't know the history this reviewer has with the series, but a journalist saying that the game is easy is kind of wild. No pun intended. It is kind of wild. The thing is, old school Monster Hunter fans, a lot of them complained about World for being too easy, and it was too easy, but it was too easy as a result of it basically making the game function better. Monster Hunter World got rid of a lot of the old-fashioned bloat in the series, such as needing to carry around pickaxes and whetstones and all these kind of things. And they also made they gave more control to the player in terms of combat. Combat got less deliberate, like the Dark Souls games, like the original Dark Souls game. It was less deliberate. You have more wiggle room to angle your strikes in World than you do in the older games. In the older games, when you attacked, you had to commit. But in World, the movement was far more fluid. And because the movement was far more fluid and responsive, the game was inherently easier as a result. The way they counteracted that was, well, unfortunately, how a lot of video games counteract difficulty. And they made the monsters overtuned and hit like a fucking truck way more than they usually would. They made the monsters way faster, and they made them hit like a truck, they made them way faster, and they gave them a shit ton of HP. The worst aspect of this was probably Devil Joe. Devil Joe, I hated how they handled Devil Joe in World, because Devil Joe in Monster Hunter Tri, I think he was introduced, you didn't know Devil Joe was in the game. When Devil Joe was introduced, you had just reached high rank or G rank. I think it was high rank, something like that. And you were sent out to hunt down that is the phone. I'm going to ignore it because I'm in the middle of a video. You were sent out to hunt a Kuropeko. It was either a Kuropeko or it was a Raffian. I can't remember. And then this fucking thing shows up. And this is like right at the start of G rank or right at the start of high rank. Right? Right at the start of it. You cannot take this thing on. It will fuck you up. Not only will it fuck you up, but this time the tables have turned. you're not hunting this monster through the zones. It is hunting you through the zones. It will fuck you up very easily, and it chases you down. That is what made Devil Joe so infamous. It was how it was introduced to the series. It came out of nowhere, and it was fucking relentless. Enter Monster Hunter World. Devil Joe is introduced in advertisements. Everyone knows about it. Everyone knows it's coming. And to counteract the fact that they've done this, they make it just a big fucking meaty bastard that did way too much damage. And because of the balance issues with live service games, if you start a brand new game of Monster Hunter World and you're good at the game like I am, you can actually take down Devil Joe really fucking early. And by taking Devil Joe down really fucking early, you essentially unlock a weapon. You can get a weapon. For me, I'm a greatsword user. You essentially unlock a weapon that will carry you through the rest of the game up until the point you hit Iceborne. Live service issues. The old Monster Hunter games never had these issues because they were perfectly finished games that... They were finished games at launch that had a balance to them. Live service games inherently do not have balance because it is just a case of power creep. It is the developers versus the players. The players collectively, because of the collective autism of the internet, figures out how to exploit the game, and then the game is updated to compensate for that. And this results in overtuned monsters that people who have been playing the game for a while and just want to play through the game normally can't really compete with in a brand new playthrough because they're playing the game like a normal Monster Hunter game and not like a live service game where everyone is chasing the meta. God, the idea of Monster Hunter having a meta just drives me fucking nuts. But yeah, I don't even know what the original point was there. I'm just going to go on a rant. But yeah. Oh no, the original point was difficulty, wasn't it? But yeah, I don't mind the games getting easier. I play Monster Hunter because of the feel. No game I have ever played has given me the same feeling as perfectly timing a greatsword smack into a monster as it's charging towards me and fucking it up. No game in history has ever given me that feeling outside of Monster Hunter. When you hit with a weapon in Monster Hunter, depending on what weapon you use, I'm a greatsword user, when you hit with the greatsword, you feel the hit. The sound design, the feedback design for the player is so good, every hit feels meaty and impactful. And because of that, combat is super fun. I am the kind of person that has a blast just taking down the basic raptor at the start of low rank. I love the core gameplay of Monster Hunter. So it being easier doesn't really bother me because I'm not the kind of person that needs to feel validation by telling everyone online I have a big dick, right? Look at me, I have a big dick, I'm super fucking good at this game, I can take on the biggest challenges in the fucking game, I can do the most damage, blah, blah, blah. I don't give a fuck, right? I enjoy this game because I love the core loop of the game. I love the core game, I love the core gameplay of the game. I'm not playing a difficult game just to say, look at me, I'm so big dick, I'm playing a difficult game, right? This is one thing I hate about how the Monster Hunter community has changed. This is one thing I hate about the Dark Souls community. Cool, you're playing a hard game. Is the game easy for you? Because the funny thing is, a lot of these people like to say, oh, I'm playing a hard game, but also like to say, the gameplay is easy for me. Cool, well, you're just here for your ego then. You're not interested in the game, you just want to big up yourself. Get a life. So I don't mind the gameplay getting easier, the game's getting easier, so long as the gameplay still has that same feeling to it, that same impact to it, right? But yeah, like, we'll see with this. This is actually one of the things I didn't like about Rise, and Rise is the only Monster Hunter game in the series so far I do not like. And it's because I wasn't playing a Monster Hunter game, I was playing a fucking Spider-Man game. I don't want to swing around like Spider-Man. I want to hit this motherfucker with a greatsword. You know, you hit gold with Generation Spore's jumping and climbing and mounting mechanics. Rise took it too far and made it all about those things. It wasn't fun anymore. I wasn't playing Monster Hunter. I was playing Devil May Spider-Man. Like, no. I miss the impact of weapons. I'm not here to do flashy combos like I'm playing Devil May Cry. I'm not here to swing around the fucking environment like I'm playing Spider-Man. I'm here to feel the impact meatiness of my weapon in a monster's face and then have it react accordingly. That's why I'm here. But, yeah.
My first surprise in Wilds was that the campaign isn't just a totally forgettable excuse to kill anything that crosses your path this time. Okay, it's still mostly that as you explore yet.
Look, if you've been playing Monster Hunter for a long time, don't complain about the story. Like, I think Monster Hunter 4, for you, was the first time the series even had a story. Like, the older games had a story. It's typically, you know, big monster causing problems, go out, take care of it. Oh, wait, the big monster wasn't actually the big monster. It was this other big monster that was doing it. You know, it's like, we've seen this in Tri and so on and so forth. With Tri, it was the Lagiacrus. Oh, no, it was not the Lagiacrus. It was this big beardy whale thing. You know, and then in later entries, oh wait, it wasn't this big beardy whale thing, it was this giant volcano dragon thing. And it's like, you're playing the Monster Hunter series for the gameplay, not the story. It's a lot like fighting games, you know, in the fighting games, the story is the excuse to play the game, right? Some fighting games have an exception. Don't get me wrong, if Monster Hunter has a good story, then cool, but I'm not here for a story. I am a very story-driven player. I'm a very character-driven player. I love RPGs for that very reason. Monster Hunter is the exception to that, to me. I love Monster Hunter just because the gameplay gives me something that no other fucking game has ever given me. And I love it. It's super addictive. And that's why I didn't like Rise, because it didn't feel like a Monster Hunter game. And it was not a finished game, and it was riddled with DLC, but we'll get to that.
And another uncharted land to solve some mystery? But while the story itself isn't...
Oh my fucking god. Right, you are going on mute. I've just muted my phone because I'm sick of hearing a honk. Right, maybe we can continue on with this.
Particularly fresh.
Oh my god, there goes the house phone again! Right, I've just had to go out and do a bit of running around for people. As you can probably see the ear down here, I have one of the dogs sitting on my knee at the moment, so fingers crossed they're going to be calm. I have been having quite the week. I've got something coming up that is worrying the shit out of me, and I'm being a bit short. So I apologize for my anger. I know it's very immature. Let's hope we can get through the rest of this now in peace. Right, let's go. Fuck me.
The difference here is that the characters within it are actually pretty great. Whether it's the excitable engineer Gemma...
We are so gonna talk later, pal.
Your empathetic handler Alma...
Oh, but I've definitely heard of him.
Or the total...
Please, please, please be at least better than the handler from Monster Hunter World. Oh my god, I hated her so much. I wanted her to die all the time. Like, if I had the option, I would have just left the Devil Joe to eat her ass. My god.
Total space cadet of a biologist, Eric.
This forest is amazing.
Your team is full of likable personalities and little character arcs.
Hey, that's the question. Am I going to play this game in Monster Hunter language, or am I going to play this game in English? Oh, wait, no. I'm probably going to play this game in Monster Hunter language, because not only is the voice acting typically cringy since they've been adding it, but also they made the cats talk. I did hear that they made it optional, though, because I have spent years hearing like, I've been spending years hearing that, I don't want to hear a little cat going, "Meow, I'm going to attack this thing." No, no, no. It's not. They don't speak English. They speak Nyanish. Meow, meow, meow. Like, that's how they speak. They don't, how the Monster Hunter characters speak. That. Do you want to get down? Am I annoying you? Come on then. That is how Monster Hunter characters speak. So I think I'll be playing this game in Monster Hunter language if they give you the option. Please God, give us the option. You did it for the cats, so thank you for that. So the people who want talking cats can have talking cats, and the people like myself that want the traditional Nyanish can listen to that, which is good. You give people options. Fantastic. I approve of that. So hopefully you do the same thing with Monster Hunter, because I've been spending years listening to Monster Hunter voices being like, I don't need anything other than that. You know what I mean? It's like if the Sims suddenly started talking instead of flabba-dabba-da, fuck-ja. It would be weird, So yeah, I am actually looking forward to the game. I'm concerned, you know what I mean, because of Rise. But yeah, I hope it wouldn't be the biggest deal in the world. I could get used to the English voice acting. As I say, I'm not here for the story anyway. I'm here because Monster Hunter has amazing gameplay, super satisfying gameplay. So we'll see.
Throughout the gorgeously animated cutscenes.
See? Told you they'd be fine.
And that was enough to get me more invested. The revamped structure of
Hey, we got the big-ass pink monkey that throws shit on you and burps in your face. Nice, we have not seen this motherfucker for a while.
Means that campaign is significantly shorter than I was expecting.
Yeah, there he is,
I
shitting himself.
in just 15 hours and didn't have to fight a single
I reached the credits in just 15 hours? I'm assuming you're meaning the village quests. Because if that's the guild quests as well, that's kind of crazy. Alright, so this was the bit. I'm going to let him continue.
monster twice in that time, getting enough materials from any initial encounters to keep my gear up to snuff and jump right from one mission to the next.
Getting a lot of materials from initial encounters to keep your gear up to snuff. That's crazy. Typically speaking, if you're farming gear, you're going to fight that monster at least like 5 times, if you're lucky, right? That's crazy. Have they given... It's like, are the gear craft material like Palico levels? Because in Monster Hunter Generations, they gave you the option to play as a cat instead of a hunter, like a Palico. And the Palico armor required less materials than the hunter armor because they're smaller. They would require less materials. And it was just a unique, interesting, like, gimmicky way to play if you wanted to. Like, I know a guy that played through the entire game as a cat. Different experience, fair enough. But that's weird. I'm not... Yeah, I am against the grind. Look, the grind is part of it. And usually I hate grind, but in Monster Hunter, the grind is coming from combat. It's coming from combat. And if you enjoy the combat, then you won't mind. But if you hate the combat, why the fuck are you playing the game? You know, this is not like grinding in an MMO where you're just shooting the same monster over and over and over and over and over and over again, hoping to get the right drop. You're engaging in really satisfying fighting all the time. So, I mean, I get it if it's a monster you hate fighting. Everyone has a monster they hate fighting. Fucking Plesioff. Everyone... Oh, fuck. Rajang. Oh god, I hate Rajang. Everyone has a monster they hate fighting. Oh no, the ultimate one for me is Kiran. Although admittedly, Kiran's nowhere near as bad as it used to be. But yeah, like everyone has monsters they hate fighting. I get it. I know a lot of people hate like Diablos. A lot of people hate the screamy dragon, like the Legiana, I think it was called. A lot of people hated that. I played with one girl back in my World of Warcraft days. She was a dual blade user, and as a result, she hated I think it was called Pommel. It was the fluffy bat thing from Monster Hunter World. Like, she hated fighting that thing because she couldn't reach it half the time, and the only part of it she could reach was the tail. Whereas me, a greatsword user, wasn't a problem. So yeah, everyone hates certain monsters. I get that, like, but that just means that you don't fight them. Typically speaking, there's enough monsters in a bracket where if you want to upgrade your armor, you don't have to fight that thing. It's a little bit different when you're up against Elder Dragons. I'm not really a fan of fighting the silvery dragon from like Monster Hunter Portable 2. I forget its name now. It's the one that's like silvery and everyone just spams splash grenades on it all the time, and I think it's weak to poison. It's that thing. I'm not a fan of that just because it's like dink, 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 dink all the time because of its armor. Teostra can be a pain in the ass as well, depending on if you're doing it solo, it's fine. Never face Teostra online, no. Because you have all these people that have these DPS builds, and you just rush in, and he does that explosion, and they all die, and you lose right away. So, yeah, Teostra is only a pain in the ass if you're playing online, but if you're playing on your own, he's fine. But, yeah, like, but the thing is, there is a real debate to be had in terms of time spent in games. Now, when I was younger, and I had the time to sit around playing games all day, playing a game being like having hours upon hours upon hours of content was a good thing. However, as an adult with less time, it's a little bit more complicated. I'm really burned out by open world games, which is actually one of the things that's worrying me about Wilds. I actually ended up really disliking Elden Ring because Elden Ring was essentially an Ubisoft game without the map markers. The copy and paste everything. Here's the dungeon. Here's the enemy camp. Here's the boss that you've seen, the filler boss that you've seen like 99 times as a regular mob, but now they have like beefed up HP. Elden Ring, I honestly don't think is that good. I liked it. It was actually my game of the year that year. I liked it at first, but I never finished it. I got up to the like icy zone, which I believe is like the zone with that one female boss that everyone thinks is super difficult. I don't know why I never got up to it. And once I reached that point, I'm like, right, okay, I'll come back to it in a few days. Because every single time I got to a new zone, I got overwhelmed because I'm a completionist and I want to do all of it. You know, see the problem? And in doing all of it, I came across the same shit over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And I just got bored. And every single time I hit a new zone, I'm like, oh god, here we go again. And it's just like the same Erd Tree bosses, the same dungeons with the same gargoyles and the same end thing that always gives you like a summon reward. The same enemy camp style little locations, the same filler boss that is just a mob with a beefed up HP. And it's just like, once you understand the design philosophy with Elden Ring, it's a boring as shit game. It really is. It's just a big open world full of the same shite over and over and over again. And the only thing throughout my entire time playing this game that was memorable was Rodan. And that was it. And that was before the fucking nerf. I don't know how bad it is. I don't know if it's still as good now, but yeah. Rodan was the only memorable thing about the game. I remember its name, for Christ's sake, and that's it. The big hand as well. It was just weird, but yeah. I barely remember anything but that. Oh, no, I remember Rodan, and I remember that woman that hugs you and gives you a debuff, which I wasn't aware of. And then her questline is actually pretty good. Like, the boss you fight at the end of her questline, and the zone that you go into through her questline is really good. But Elden Ring, for the most part, was just the same shit over and over and over again. I got really bored with it. Kingdom Come Deliverance, on the other hand, I loved. This was a game that took a long time to finish. Like, there's a lot of hours there, and there's a lot of running around back and forth. But because of the difficulty of the game and the way the mechanics are so, like, detailed and interact with one another, Kingdom Come Deliverance was an extremely immersive experience. The thing with Monster Hunter is Monster Hunter's all about the fighting. That's kind of what it's all about, but it's also about like surviving and getting resources and building your way up. It's the survival loop. Like, the best ever review on Monster Hunter is Monster Hunter Try by Pro Jared. You can run around and gather things, and you can mine things, and then you can use those things to craft armor, and then you can go out and kill things, and then you can carve them up and use their flesh and bones to make even better armor weapons and go out and kill even bigger things or something like that. Come on, let's go cut them. Like, that's the thing. Monster Hunter's loop of take down fun monster, use parts of monster to craft better equipment, use that better equipment to go after tougher monster, so on and so forth. That is why people play Monster Hunter. And I don't know whether the open world decision in this game or the mounts in this game or anything like that is gonna be a good decision. And like I said before, playing Monster Hunter games, some of the older entries for new players put them off because it was a while before they got into the meat. But what Rise did was cut everything. There was nothing in Rise outside of killing quests. And that resulted in the game feeling very bare bones, on top of it being the live service model. Like, Monster Hunter World was a live service game as well, but Monster Hunter World didn't feel anywhere near as barren as Monster Hunter Rise. Rise had no content at launch. Nothing. Even Monster Hunter World took me a few weeks to catch up with. Nearly a month to get to a good point in Monster Hunter World. Monster Hunter Rise took me a few weeks, and that was during a period in which, I'd say 2-3 weeks. And that was a period in which I didn't have a lot of time to play. I had recently lost my mother, and I just didn't have a lot of time to play. A lot of things was going on at the time, and so I just finished it really quickly. There was nothing to it because they had cut out everything. And there was barely any content. I finished it super quickly, and then I just had to wait for more content because it's a live service game. And all we got from them was microtransactions and microtransactions and microtransactions and microtransactions. Cue the older Monster Hunter games. You put the disc or the cartridge in, you play it, you have thousands upon thousands of hours of content right from the get-go. Even the non-G-rank versions, like Monster Hunter Generation, not Generation U or whatever it's called, but Monster Hunter Generations. Monster Hunter Generations was a high-rank game. It wasn't a G-rank game. I think it was the first one of those we got in the West, and it was amazing, especially for a long-time fan. And it had plenty of content. A lot of people's defense for this is, well, yeah, because it doesn't have G-rank. No, that's not the problem. G-rank isn't the problem. In fact, because I didn't have friends that played this series, I couldn't get into G-rank for many years. I played pretty much every single one of these games and did the village quests and the guild quests solo. And I just played until I got up to the point where it was impossible for me to continue. I never finished a Monster Hunter game until my friend bought Monster Hunter Tri-U for the Wii U. And we finally, for the first time, got into G-rank. That's the first time I ever touched G-rank, but I loved these games prior, so I had nothing to do with G-rank and everything to do with what these games used to provide. They used to be complete, full experiences that were balanced all the way through. And then every month you would be able to download free editions, new event quests, and so on and so forth that would give you the rewards that you're being asked to pay for now. There's several awards, there's several microtransaction things in Rise that you just got as free event quest rewards in prior games. This is why I'm pissed off. We're paying the exact same price, sometimes even more, and we're getting less content. We're having to wait for more content for several years. Then they expect us to buy an expansion. And throughout the entire time, we're getting microtransaction. Like fucking Monster Hunter Rise gave Train Simulator a run for its money in terms of DLC. It was insane how much many microtransactions that game got. Meanwhile, the actual game had zero content pretty much until Sunbreak. And even then, I don't know what Sunbreak's like, I never played it, but base Rise had less content than the village quests in like the first game. It was crazy just how bare bones Rise was. And on top of that, we had a bunch of mechanic changes I didn't like. The overfocus is on combos and parries. The overfocus on the swings. The swinging around. The overfocus on riding monsters that just slowed the shit down of combat. I hated Rise. Rise was terrible. The fucking birds. Oh my god, the birds. But yeah, so we got terrible content for it. Now, Wilds is looking a lot better, but beating a game so quickly, a Monster Hunter game, all this part of the review is telling me is Wilds on launch has no content. And it's going to be another live service game that we're going to have to wait years upon years upon years for it all to be finished. And by that point, we're going to have an unbalanced fucking mess in which everyone just chases the meta every expansion, which is disgusting to me because these used to be complete games. You used to buy a finished fucking product with months worth of content and free content on top of that every month. And now we get a bare bones experience with basically microtransactions to fill in, which will end up being the cost of the game like 3 or 4 times over if you buy them all. It's crazy. But people just eat this up because of how gameplay's changed over the years. It's disappointing, man. It's disappointing. So it's just weird how he's phrased this as a positive thing. It's just like, no, all you're telling me here is that the game has no content. It's like, I don't want to spend my entire life playing one game, right? I want to be able to play other games. I don't want one game to completely overtake everything. But this is a series that used to have amazing content from launch, and all you're saying here is it has nothing.
When you compare that to the 40-plus hours it took to see the end of the story and world, it feels like the intent is to allow more people to quote-unquote beat Wilds. And I certainly appreciate how that shift toward approachability might appeal to anyone who has been traditionally intimidated by the series. But
I don't. Monster Hunter slowly got better at introducing people to the series, but with Rise onwards, it feels like they've just cut everything out. They've cut everything out, they've simplified everything, and it's just like, I mean, if you don't have to farm for materials to upgrade your equipment, and everything is just a hunt quest, unlike the prior games. I'm assuming everything is just a hunt quest again, because that's what Rise was. It was just a hunt quest after hunt quest after hunt quest. There was nothing else beyond that. You know, yeah. I don't know, man. That's a lot of money to be paying for a bare bones Monster Hunter experience. We're going to be waiting years for it to be finished, then unbalanced, and then, you know, supplemented with hundreds of pounds worth of microtransactions. No.
But as a veteran, I can't help but be a little disappointed that I literally didn't get knocked out once in that entire time.
Alright, massive respect to this guy. He's actually saying a lot of what I think. He's just being a lot nicer about it than I am. It's like, at one point he says that the game is easier, but it still has that feel, right? He said that at one point, and that was pretty much what I went on a big tirade about. It's like, yeah, the game's easier, but that doesn't bother me, because if it's still got that feeling, cool, I'm still going to enjoy it. And he's complaining here, like, I've not even been knocked out once that entire time, and it's not taking me long to beat it. That's not a good thing. So essentially what he's saying here is, the game has been dumbed down, we're getting less content, and as someone who's been playing these games for a long time, not too happy about it, but he's being a lot nicer about it than I would be.
There's never a skill or armor testing wall of a monster that forced me to really consider my equipment choices more deeply in order to earn the reward of a hard-fought victory.
That's disappointing, because that is what bracket quests should be, urgent quests. That is what urgent quests should be. When you get from one star ranking to another, there is an urgent hunt that is the test to see if you can earn the next bracket. And then in that bracket, that monster becomes the standard. And then at the end of that bracket, there's another urgent quest that should test you. And I would say around 5 stars. Once you hit 5 stars, that's usually when you start getting Rathalos. It's usually when you start getting Diablos. This is when you start getting monsters with mechanics that can fuck you up if you've not been paying attention, right? Everything up to about 5 stars is like piss easy. But once you get to 5 stars, that's when you need to start paying attention. Now, I've been playing this series for years. I used to hunt Rathalos for fun. Rathalos is my favorite monster, which is kind of like Pikachu being your favorite Pokemon, but yeah, Rathalos is my favorite monster. It was the first one I struggled with in the old game way back on the PlayStation 2 days. It took me a long time to kill it, and I love its armor. I love the red wing weapon. Rathalos and me have a long history. And to me, when I kill Rathalos for the first time, that is when I'm in a Monster Hunter game. That's when I've officially started playing Monster Hunter, and that's when the fights start getting really fun. And that is just low rank. and then eventually we hit high rank, and so on and so forth. So for me, yeah, like the urgent quests should be a challenge. Now this guy is a veteran, and if by veteran he means like me, he's been playing since like the PSP or the PlayStation 2 era, then yeah, cool, he would have that opinion. Maybe it's a bit more difficult for the newer people, and we're just so used to the series that it's a bit too easy for us, and we're missing the difficulty. But yeah, that is a bit of a shame that he wasn't challenged remotely. Like I said, like I don't play these games for challenge. In fact, Dark Souls is a series I could happily play on God mode and still have a blast with. You know, I don't know whether I'd be the same way with Monster Hunter, but yeah, like I still enjoy the core feedback and gameplay of Monster Hunter, whether it's difficult or not. So, but it is a bit weird that, you know, he was never caughted. That doesn't mean he never lost. He was just never knocked out at any point. That's crazy.
Avoiding spoilers, there is, of course, more to do once you get past the credits. That's where the larger changes while...
Oh, okay, so he is just talking about the low-rank village quests. Okay, so typically how it goes is you've got the low-rank village quest, you've got the big final fight, and then you've got high rank. And high rank usually contains the real end fight. So, for example, in Monster Hunter World, which most of you will be familiar with, there was this big-ass fucking mountain dragon, and that was the big thing throughout low rank. And then low rank into high rank, we realized that, no, it wasn't this monster, it was actually Nergigante. And then, no, it's not Nergigante, it's actually this big, ancient fucking, like, alien dragon thing, whatever the fuck it was. The big white thing in the Crystal Cave. And that's usually how Monster Hunter goes. It's like Dragon Ball, there's always a bigger guy. And there's like one bigger guy that's actually affecting the other bigger guys. That's typically how it goes. And then when Iceborne was introduced, it was more of the bigger guys. I can't remember how Rise went. I think Rise was the same thing. We had the samurai fucking Zenogre little like fight, which is really good, by the way. They never fail with the flagships. Every flagship in Monster Hunter is fucking amazing, and that guy from Rise was no exception. And then after I think the big boss of Rise was that like floaty dragon in that really boring spectacle fight section, and then they added the blue version later on. So Rise was a little bit disappointing in that area, but the spectacle fights like Gen Moren and you know, that thing, they do tend to get a little bit boring because you're not actively fighting and you're usually mostly shooting turrets and things. But yeah,
Monster Hunter loop really start to shine. Gone are the days of...
Alright, cool. So I take back what I said before. When he's talking about finishing the game, he's just talking about low rank quests. High rank will contain a lot more content. Okay, that's cool. Okay, cool. That's good.
Returning to a separate town between every hunt, then going down the same checklist of tasks before you're ready for the next one. Pretty much everything you need is out in the field with you, and you're never more than a lickety-split loading...
This might be a controversial opinion. I don't like that. I like the core loop of prep, hunt, return to town, sort out inventory, choose your upgrades, prep, hunt, return to town. I like that loop. I find that loop incredibly satisfying. Older games did have endless hunts. They did. You could shoot. In fact, freaking World had this. World had this. Try had this. Try You had this, in which you could just go out into a zone and kill as much as you could until you got back. And it would usually give you a lot of like village points to spend on certain things by doing that. And sometimes that's just what I did. I wanted to play Monster Hunter, didn't really have much else to do. Let's just go out and see how much shit I can kill before I'm completely out of stamina and health, and then come back, right? And sometimes I could spend hours out there just killing, and it was a really good way of getting crowns as well, because sometimes you would get like really big or really small versions. But this Wilds is just that now. Kill, rather than the nice, satisfying loop of like prep, hunt, like return, upgrade, prep, hunt, return. I like that personally. And I'm kind of tired of open world games for the most part. So hopefully once I'm actually in there playing the game, I'll warm up to it. But there's a reason why I didn't like EA's take on this. I forget what that one was called, but EA tried a Monster Hunter game a little while ago. I didn't like that game for a few reasons. One was the tacked on building mechanics. I'm here to hunt, not to build shit. I'm not playing a building game, I'm playing a hunting game. I'm not here to build. Fuck the building mechanics, that was a pain in the ass. I also didn't really like most of the weapons in the EA's game, but I also didn't like fucking around in this big open world all the time. Like, I missed going back to an area, doing the rounds with NPCs, like prepping, upgrading. The fact that I was in an open world all the time and never really changing scenery made me feel like I wasn't really achieving anything or wasn't really doing anything. I was just kind of traveling back and forth all the time. Whereas in the Monster Hunter typical format, the step-by-step progress made me feel like I was making step-by-step progress. This might make the game feel a little bit boring to me, a little bit repetitive without that step-by-step process. But I could be wrong, we'll see.
Putting a screen away from whichever beautiful area you want to be in. Convenient adjustments are all over the place, like food buffs being tied to a timer now that sticks around between hunts. It doesn't...
Again, that's fine. That is fine, but I don't know, it just seems unnecessary. Like, for me, World was the perfect compromise. World added so much responsiveness to the controls. It removed a lot of bloat. The only thing I really didn't like in terms of changes to World was the scout flies. The scout flies were really useful for highlighting resources that could be difficult to see in the more realistic environments, or the more dense environments. They were obvious in the older games that were far more simple graphically, but in World it was far more, dense. So resources were sometimes harder to see. So the scout flies were really good for resources. But once you found out where the monsters' patterns were, like where they were, you didn't have to follow the scout flies. And quite often, you would get ahead of the scout flies, and then the scout flies would snap your neck as you were, as it fucked with your camera. Because the scout flies would actually point backwards and then forwards again, and he would fuck with your camera. But you couldn't turn one of those features off. Either the scout flies were completely off, making gathering more of a pain in the arse, or they were on, making hunting a pain in the arse. And turning it off and on in the menus were a pain in the arse either, so I just left it on and dealt with the neck snap all the time. But outside of the scout flies, I liked a lot of the changes World made in terms of the core gameplay, because it really just removed a lot of carrying stuff around and a lot of the bloat, and the menu system in terms of like combat was very good. But it feels like since World, we've been dumbing it down more and more every game. We've been focusing on the wrong things. We've been focusing on more on making the hunters like flashy anime characters rather than hunters, you know what I mean? I don't know, like, again, this could go either way, but I do not like the idea of it being further dumbed down, you know? World added, you can go back to my Game of the Year video, my top 5 for that year. World added a lot of quality of life improvements. They reduced a lot of the bloat, they smoothed down the process, and they just made the game, like, play way better. I really notice it when I go back and play the older entries. Like, World really did spoil us in that regard. But since then, we're getting a little bit too snippy, you know what I mean? There's too much stuff being cut. We've cut out so bloat that we're just being left with we're being left with skeletons at this point, and there's no meat anymore. You know what I mean?
Didn't even take down while in camp, making a previously repetitive process substantially smoother without...
Again, though, it's not a repetitive process to me because eating was part of the core loop. That was part of prep. There's prep, hunt, return, upgrade. Prep, hunt, return, upgrade. That was the loop. And I enjoyed that loop. So, yeah.
Removing the depth it added to hunts.
Nothing like home cooking.
The roaringly successful result of those changes is that a vast majority of the friction past games could produce as you start and stop and restart between every encounter has been removed. Now you can just check.
That was never a problem for me. That was never a problem for me. And shit, like, I still enjoy the games in which every section was, like, numbered off. Here is Area A, Area B, Area 1, Area 2, whatever it was. That's how Monster Hunter used to be. World removed the zones. And they made big, like, hub areas. So that was a decent change because it removed loading screens. But I honestly never minded the loop. I enjoyed the loop. That was part of the meditative process of playing Monster Hunter for me. But, again, it might be something I'll get used to. I don't hate it. I'm just, you know, I'm an old school player. I like what I like. You know what I mean?
Check your map for monster information and go hunt. The monsters you'll face are also generally excellent. That could be a flashy newcomer like the flamenco.
This motherfucker is one of the reasons why I caved and ended up pre-ordering the game. One of the things I loved about Monster Hunter 4U, which is the best game in the series, by the way, is the introduction of Insectoid. And I love the movements the Insectoids have. And, fuck, one of my favourite new monsters in Rise. That's one thing Rise did well. Pretty much every new monster I saw in Rise, again, I don't know about Sunbreak, but every new monster introduced in Rise was fucking great. And it was so cool to see Camellias back as well after God knows how many years. Those twitchy animations are fantastic. So, I am super excited to see this thing, and I cannot wait to see what the armor is going to be made of. I'm expecting some, like, vampire gothy armor, and I cannot wait to see what it looks like. This thing is badass. This is one of the coolest monsters they've ever designed. Nurseller is one of my overall favorite monsters. That was replaced by the Tarantula in Rise. I've got a feeling this motherfucker's gonna replace the Tarantula. I have loved the spiders in this series. They've not added many of them, but every single one of them has been super fucking awesome, so I can't wait to fight this thing.
Inspired Lalabarina, or Wild's headliner Arkveld and its chain-like appendages.
Oh, is this guy the flagship? I've not seen the flagship yet. It kind of reminds me of Pinecone Dragon. I can't remember what... Pinecone Dragon was the first monster to introduce Bleed. I think that might have been Monster Hunter 4 again, actually. It might have been Generations. I think it was 4. Or was it Generations? I can't remember. Doesn't matter. But, yeah. Interesting. Looks kind of neat.
But the true stunner has to be New Udra. The tentacle...
Oh yeah, we got a new octopus. We haven't had one of them since that old Elder Dragon that, like, wore the skulls of, and the bones of other monsters and, like, gained their power. That was a really cool monster, but yeah, I'm glad we're finally getting another octopus. That's neat.
Of Monster Hunter's first octopus-like creature can be...
Is it Monster Hunter's first octopus-like creature now, though? Wait a minute. Let me Google it. It was a Nautilus, really, wasn't it? Or is it a snail? I think it was a Nautilus. Monster Hunter Octopus Elder Dragon. I believe this was Monster Hunter 4U again. Ah, here it is. It's called Nakarkus. Nakarkus. It was like an octopus kind of creature. Actually, not an octopus, more like a cuttlefish. Yeah, I'd say it's more like a cuttlefish. It was a cuttlefish that wore the bones of dead elder dragons and gained their power. And if you want to go back even further, it's not an octopus, it's more like a fucking eldritch abomination. But from the old PSP Monster Hunter games, there was Yama Tuskami, which was like this fucking colossal floating tentacle thing, like full of moss. Kind of a boring fight, to be honest, but yeah, that's a classic right there. So it might be the first octopus. You might be right, but we did have like a cuttlefish prior that was very cool. But still, no complaints. Very cool.
Be as unpredictable to contend with as you might expect, especially when they're literally on fire. And the satisfaction of severing every single one of them over the course of a hunt is second to none.
Oh yeah, I can imagine that's going to be a really satisfying fight.
The appeal of
I'm looking forward to that.
fights has always been how it empowers you with flashy moves and hard-hitting attacks.
Flashy moves, no. I'm not playing Devil May Cry. I hate character action games. I'm not here to not be able to see what the fuck's going on because you're doing an anime fucking Naruto combo. I'm here for the impact. Can you tell I'm a greatsword user? I'm not here using the fucking dual blades and pretending I'm a ninja. I'm a fucking greatsword user. I want to feel the smacks. I don't care about flashy bullshit.
But knowing when to strike, and where to stand, and how the monster will behave next is just as important as figuring out which buttons to press. That's true in Wilds too, but combat is also more flexible and forgiving.
I love the look of these things. Look how cool these little fuckers look. I love the raptors in this game. I can't wait to see what the alpha looks like. I love these little things. They look like they've got like meaty flowers attached to their necks. It's really cool. They actually remind me of the Ass Blasters from the Tremors series. You ever watch Tremors? I might put a picture up here. Yeah, the Ass Blasters, not the Ass Blasters. The Ass Blasters were the flying ones. The second ones, like the little chicken ones. They remind me a lot of that. I'll shove a picture up on the screen. But they remind me of that from the Tremors series. Like, yeah, these guys look great. I really like their design.
For example, you can adjust your footing a little more mid-combo, resulting in fewer moments where a mistimed attack with a long animation had me embarrassingly slicing at the air.
Alright, so maybe the combat you can fuck up a little bit more than World. That's good.
In many ways, the combat feels like it's all about the new wound system this time.
Oh no. Oh, please don't tell me this is like the fucking Clutch Claw. I swear to God, if they've implemented the Clutch Claw into the core game, I'm gonna scream.
Wounds open up once you deal enough damage to a given body part, and then you'll deal extra damage when attacking them. But deal enough damage to a wound and it'll break, resetting that spot. Every weapon also has a simple
Wasn't that always the gameplay? It's like Diablos' horns. Do enough damage to that and you'll break it off. I don't know whether this is the case anymore, but my old brain tells me that impact weapons such as hammers do more damage to those areas. Correct me, because I can't remember. I just do that anyway. I can't remember whether that's still a thing. Like blades you use to cut off tails, hammers you use to break armor and bone and thing, right? Wasn't that always the case? Is it like, have they mixed the Clutch Claw with the basic mechanic? So, like, instead of fucking around with the Clutch Claw and completely ruining the flow of combat, what they've instead done is just added the Clutch Claw effect into basic combat, where if you just can keep attacking an area over and over again, you'll essentially tenderize it, and then it'll break, and then you'll tenderize it, you'll do more damage up until the point where it completely breaks. Okay, actually, that sounds pretty good. So instead of a monster having, like, breakable weak areas, if you keep attacking an area, you can make any area weak until you break it. That's pretty good, actually. If that is how I think it works, that's pretty good. It also lends reason as to why this game feels easier, because then instead of attacking weak spots, that often puts you in dangerous positions, you can just attack the most easiest spot in the hunt, and just keep weakening that area and tenderizing it and then breaking it over and over again. That actually goes a long way to explain why this version might be quite easy, because that sounds very exploitable.
Execute Focus Strike that will deal a burst of damage to a wound and break it right away. So maximizing the amount of time you leave one open and then using that finisher before it closes naturally is an interesting subgame to manage.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. Look, I'm the kind of person that doesn't even use, like, grenades. Oh, sorry, like, yeah, is it grenades, bombs, flash bombs and things, like flash grenades, whatever you call them. I'm the kind of person that doesn't use those, or even bombs, like barrel bombs, unless I'm fighting something that is really challenging, or unless I have a history with something. Like, I have a history with Kieran, so I will blow the fuck out of Kieran's face with bombs. I have a bit of a turbulent history with Kieran. I have a history with the Goku monkey, what's it called? I forget its name. I said it before. Rajang. I have a history of these that I don't like them. So, in order to make the fight quicker, I will explode their face once I knock them out or catch them sleeping. It's just something I do. But generally speaking, I don't even use grenades or bombs, because I don't really need to. And Greatsword go smash. You know what I mean? So you can use them, and you can make certain fights ridiculously easy by using these tools to your disposal, but I'm good enough at the game at this point because I've been playing it for years. Like, this isn't a flex thing. I've just been playing it for years. Like, I'm not very good at video games in general. I'm terrible at video games for the most part. But because I've been playing Monster Hunter for so many years and have played every Western release, outside of Sunbreak at this point, I suppose, then yeah, I know what I'm doing in the series, and I don't really need all of those tools, and I don't really find it as fun to fuck around with the inventory when I can just run in and smash, you know. So this is a mechanic that I think might be okay. I just worry about the game. What I worry about is because this is going to be another live service game because there's more money in it. What will happen with the wound system is certain players will exploit it in builds, and because certain players will exploit it in builds, the developers will overtune that element, so they will actually make monsters in future patches so tough that they require you to use the wound system in order to take those monsters down. And if that's the case, then we have the clutch claw situation all over again. Except without using the actual tool. So that's where I can see that going wrong. I can see players exploiting the weakness mechanic, whatever they call it, mechanic, and then call it weakness for now. I can see players exploiting the weakness mechanic, developers realizing this, and then overtuning the new monsters they add later on, requiring you to use this mechanic. And then, yeah, we have the clutch claw situation again, so hopefully it doesn't come to that, but that's what I can see that happening.
Or at least it would be if Wilds ever presented me with a challenge that pushed me to make those considerations.
Yeah.
Whether I was playing online or solo, I've never had a mission reach...
That's gonna come later on in patches. I guarantee that will be something that will become extremely annoying, and we will have a resurgence of the clutch claw. Mark my words, the clutch claw issues will return with that.
The 20-minute mark, and I've only fainted 2 times total across dozens of
Okay, so he has been carted.
Compare that to World, which had real tests like Kieran, who smacked me silly.
Kieran! Fuck! I mean, this guy is a goddamn Insect Glaive user, so of course he has issues with Kieran. The only people that do not have issues with Kieran are ranged players. And maybe some impact weapon users like Hammer, because they can just keep knocking the fucker out all the time. But yeah, Kieran, I'm not on my own. Kieran is a fucking cunt. I hate this little pony.
My first couple of attempts, forcing me to regroup and craft an armor set around...
Yes!
Thunder resistance.
Oh my god, yes! So, here's the thing with Monster Hunter World. Up until I faced Kieran, I think I had only made like 4 different armor sets, because again, I'm good at the game, I don't need to keep upgrading my armor. And Kieran was the first monster in Monster Hunter World, and the only monster in Monster Hunter World, outside of like the undead, like, mist dragon, that forced me to completely make a set just to tackle with its bullshit. That is the only time in Monster Hunter I ever had to do that. The undead elder dragon that wears a lot of like animal corpses and uses like this miasma that cuts your health down all the time. That one I could defeat without that. But I eventually added the like Alluvian kind of like resistance thing, so it stopped affecting me. But that came later on. But Kieran was the first fight in Monster Hunter World, and the only fight in Monster Hunter World that forced me to completely change how I was playing in order to beat it. I made a thunder resistant set, I used the thunder resistant mantle, and I built a bow just to kill this fucking thing. I'd done the entire game as a greatsword user up until that fight. And to be honest, yeah, Kieran's a good monster. The fact that it forced me to change how I played because I couldn't beat it other way around with my own skill level, yeah, that's a good monster. So, I don't want the entire game to be like this because that makes the game a bit of a pain in the ass, but when a monster shows up like that every now and again, it makes it memorable. The reason why Rathalos is my favourite monster in the series is because it was the toughest fight I had in the first game, and I eventually did beat it. And I love wearing its armor, and I love using its weapon, and yeah, the Rathalos to me is like the poster child of Monster Hunter. When you kill the Rathalos, that's it. You are in the core of the game at that point. But yeah.
And it's hard not to feel like Capcom's desire to make this a more inviting...
Admittedly, Rathalos is nowhere near as difficult these days as it used to be back in the original game. Like, you'll be fighting Rathalos in, like, with early bone weaponry. It's very, very different now to what it used to be back then. So, Rathalos is a piece of piss now, and I fight it for fun. But back in the day, Rathalos used to be very, very challenging. The only thing that came close to that was, I think it was called Dread King Rathalos, which was essentially a weird variant of Rathalos, I think, in Generations. It was either Generations or For You. I think Generations. Dread King Rathalos was a variant of Rathalos that, lore-wise, had essentially killed a shit ton of hunters. It was full of scars, and its constant re-healing has caused its armor to harden like crazy. Dread King Rathalos was a beast, but that was a good fight.
Sanded off some of the bumps I actually enjoyed in terms of overcoming big threats. Things do ramp up a little bit in the post-game, but even there I only really had to worry about upgrading my armor or falling behind in damage once or twice during the content that's available at launch.
To be honest, mate, that sounds like me as well. You're just an experienced hunter and you know what you're doing, and fuck, this looks like a cool monster. Look at this thing! Look at these, like, snake-like appendages. That looks badass.
After the 15 hours it took me to beat the campaign, I only had to spend another 15 to finish every side quest that wasn't about catching fish.
Here's the fun thing, by the way. When you've been playing, this is one of the things that makes Monster Hunter easy, right? When you've been playing Monster Hunter for a long time, you realize that every monster essentially uses a specific skeleton. And once you realize that, you can already figure out most of its attack patterns. Like, this is a brand new monster. I've never seen this before. What it is, however, is it's a Royal Ludroth. It's a Royal Ludroth. That thing is exactly what Royal Ludroth does. And because it's a brand new monster, but I already know what I'm probably going to do to fight this thing because it moves exactly like a Royal Ludroth. Now, it's going to have mechanics that aren't Royal Ludroth mechanics, and that will catch me off guard. But ultimately, it's a Royal Ludroth. I already know how to fight most of the monster. It was the same thing with the flagship in Monster Hunter Rise. Great fight, don't get me wrong. But that fight was essentially a samurai Zenogre. It was a Zenogre on steroids, and that was it. So, yeah, it was a new monster, but it used the skeleton of Zenogre that just had additions to it. And once you realize the skeletons, there's the Wyvern skeleton, like you know, the Bat Wyvern skeleton, like Tigrex, like Nargacuga, like Barioth. There is the classic Wyvern skeleton, like Rathalos and Rathian. There is the Brute Wyvern skeleton, like Barroth, and to a lesser extent, Devil Joe. There is the Beast skeleton, like Zenogre and the flagship. There is the Piscine Wyvern skeleton, like Synopsis, I think it's called, the desert-dwelling shark dragon, like Plesioth, and so on and so forth. There is the Leviathan skeleton, such as Lagiacrus, and the big, like the Otter dragon from Rise, and so on and so forth, right? I don't know what the actual names are for, but there's only so many skeletons in the series, and every now and again they'll make a new skeleton. That's what made the bugs so exciting, because the bugs were brand new. Every now and again they will make a completely new skeleton that is nothing like anything you've ever fought. But once you've been playing the series for a while, you can see the base of a lot of the new monsters, where they've come from. They'll do a few things unique, but you know, like every game has the early chapter Raptor, for example. The only one of those that was ever different was the Jaggy. Is it the Jaggy? I think the Jagras. That was it. The Jagras. The Jaggy is a raptor. The Jagras from World was the first time we didn't get an outright raptor. We got like this Rastafarian Royal Ludroth kind of thing. But yeah. So that's one thing that does make it easier the more you play these series. You start recognizing patterns in how these monsters are designed and how they'll probably move.
Wasn't about catching fish. and just 5 more after that before I had the best...
Yeah, that's outright a Royal Ludroth. Now that it doesn't have all the extra shit on it, that is literally just a Royal Ludroth. That's all that is. That is a Royal Ludroth. Nice, I don't think we've seen him for a while.
And a pretty solid suite of skill-boosting decorations.
In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if it was a subspecies of the Royal Ludroth.
To be fair, I still have plenty more equipment I could grind for, but my usual desire to get the top-tier weapon...
I will say, one of the things that Monster Hunter World started, but Rise perfected, was the layered armor system. Monster Hunter World started the layer armor system, but it was really only 1 or 2 things. Rise made every armor set capable of being layered armor, that is one of the things Rise did do well. I'll tell you what Rise did well. It did the art direction. It was a nice mixture of Monster Hunter World's realism with classic Monster Hunter's color palette. The art direction was really good. The layered armor system was really good. The Palamute was a lot of fun, just not as good as the Palico. And the new monsters were all great. In fact, Rise probably has one of the best new rosters of any game in the series. Every monster in Rise before Sunbreak, I never played Sunbreak, but every new monster in Rise, outside of like the spectacle fight ones, which are always a bit iffy, were all really, really fucking good. So yeah, I don't blindly hate Rise. I just hated the bulk of the gameplay and like the changes they made, and mainly the microtransactions, because it feels really disgusting to me. But yeah, but no, like I'm looking forward to layered armor, because now I can, after I get to the end game, I can start farming armor to look a certain way, you know?
Of each elemental type and put together specialized outfits for certain challenging fights just isn't here this time, because those fights aren't here either.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this...
What I typically do is I will make a generalist, from Monster Hunter World onwards, I will make a generalist set. So I'll remove some flinch, I will give myself max earplugs, I will give myself some various resistances and defenses, and that just means that I get the ability to ignore certain mechanics. And the more mechanics I can ignore, the more I can attack, which I think is far better than building your character to do the most attack possible, but making you really, really vulnerable. Because you just get taken out really easily by some moves. Like, it only takes once to fuck up, you know? I'd rather have a nice casual experience by negating half the mechanics than taking down and enjoying the fight than taking down the monsters super fucking quickly at risk of failing the hunt outright. You know what I mean?
This comes down to raw numbers that could hypothetically be tweaked in one of the many patches that are sure to come. But some of what makes things so easy also seems to be baked into the bones of Wilds. For example, nearly every time you focus strike a wound, the monster gets locked into a little stagger animation. And you'll be breaking wounds a lot.
See, this is what I mean about the wound system. In updates, they are going to make the wound system a requirement. I can see this coming. They're going to make it a requirement, so you're not going to be able to fight monsters like you usually would. It turns into a game of find the glowing weak spot, which is stupid. And then we get the clutch claw situation all the time. This is the problem with games being live service, because then it becomes an arms race between the players and the developers, and then it just funnels you into a specific way of playing. I don't like it, but that's what's going to happen.
Meanwhile, on the crafting side of things, my hunt for the best armor was way shorter than I ever expected, because materials that are usually super rare can sometimes show up as guaranteed rewards when looking at the monster list on your map.
I'm of two minds of that. I mean, at one point, getting, like, plates and gems guaranteed is kind of nice. Because if you're the kind of person that wants to get the maximum level of every single of your chosen weapon, or a handful of chosen weapons, so I use a greatsword 99.9% of the time, but every now and again I like to use the lance. The lance is my second love. I'll use the lance every now and again, I'll use the bow every now and again, and that's kind of it. I used to use the longsword every now and again, but they changed how the longsword worked in World, and they made it this combo parry-focused anime thing, and I preferred how Monster Hunter used to do the longsword in like the older games, but World onwards, I don't enjoy the longsword anymore, and I also don't enjoy dual blades anymore, because again, it became too anime and combo focused. But So yeah, I will probably end up having every greatsword, every lance, and every bow, because they're typically the playstyles I enjoy playing. And in this game, if I remember correctly, you can have 2 different weapons on you at once. So a greatsword and bow will probably fit most scenarios quite nicely, if that's what you can end up doing. I don't hear many people talk about that anymore. We'll probably talk about it in this, because it is a new mechanic. So sometimes when you're farming for all these weapons, you need to kill specific monsters over and over and over and over and over and over again. And you could spend an entire day hunting the same monster, like hours upon hours, and still not get the fucking gem. And at that point, it does burn you out a little bit. Because as fun as the game is, you want to hunt more than one fucking thing. Especially when it's a monster that you don't enjoy fighting. So having a guaranteed way of getting the gems and the plates is nice, but also if it's too guaranteed, then it removes the rarity status of these items, which becomes a bit of a problem. So yeah, I'm of 2 minds with that. We'll see how that goes.
That was excitingly convenient initially, but it's also what brought that loot chase to an almost trivially fast end.
Yeah, I think he's spot on with that. It's something that's really nice at first, especially for people who know how annoying that grind can be, but at the same time, it kind of ruins the experience a little bit. Yeah, I think he's spot on with this. Honestly, so far, this is a pretty neat review. I think I will watch Asmongold's reaction to this later on, because Asmongold is World of Warcraft brained, and it's only in the last few years or so he's actually been branching out and realizing that other games do in fact exist. And he's one of the majority of people now who have only ever played World and Rise. I don't even know if he played Rise. I know he played World. I assume he's played Rise. So he is new generation Monster Hunter player. He doesn't have the history with the series. So I have a feeling I might actually disagree with some things he has to say, but we'll see.
Perfection.
I imagine this difficulty tuning will get a lot more people through the front door, but it also...
Yeah, here we go. See that fight system right, that monster right there? That monster is using the monkey skeleton. So you know the big pink bastard that farts and uses his shit as an attack? It's using the exact same skeleton. So I already have an idea of some of the moves this thing will do.
also means that we're...
Like, it'll throw things at you, it will jump at you, it'll use his arms a lot, you know, like, yeah, it's... I can tell by looking at it.
My past 3 Monster Hunter reviews wrapped up around the...
Which is essentially the same skeleton Rajang uses as well. And Rajang is a very, very difficult fight. Because he's very relentless. So, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but it does mean I have a general idea of how it's going to fight.
50 to 60 hour mark while I still had plenty more.
Yeah, like, this is a very Rajang
I
fight.
started losing steam with Wilds before
Oh, yeah.
I even hit 40.
That is just outright Rajang. Ajarakan? Yeah, that's just a Rajang right there. That move it's just done, that's just a Rajang.
Don't get me wrong, but it's still a healthy chunk of game, and it has absolutely been some of the most fun I've had with the series. I'm also sure any longtime fans will be thinking, well, we just have to wait for updates, or G-Rank, or whatever for the real challenge. But in that regard, Capcom's own roadmap has left me wary.
Ooh, Bubble Dragon. Bubble Dragon is one of my favorite dragons. My top 3 dragons in the series, my top 3 monsters are Rathalos, Nargacuga, Bubble Dragon. Bubble Dragon is one of my favorite monsters in the series. It's probably got the best music of any monster as well. I love this guy's theme.
There's only one monster scheduled to be added for all of spring, and then only one currently listed for summer. In contrast, Rise also felt slight at launch, but got...
If that's the case, then hopefully they balance things better. Because that was the problem. That's the problem with a lot of these things. Balance just goes out the window. I want to be able to play this game in the future and have a nice flow between bracket and bracket and bracket, but these additional monsters that they add later on, since the series became a live service game series, since World became a live service series, what tends to happen is any new monster added either gets completely fucking decimated because it should have been in the game earlier and is not fit for where we are at that point, where we've just got too much shit. Like, when they added Nargacuga, for example, into World, that was in that category, which was a shame for me, because I loved Nargacuga. Secondly to that, though, is If they don't do that, they overtune it. And that means that this monster, even though it's not like a big Elder Dragon like endgame fight, typically speaking, it's meant to be able to keep up with people who are at endgame at that point. And then it just becomes an arms race of keeping up with the endgame over and over and over again. And this becomes a problem when you play the game as a brand new character later on with all these upgrades. And the difficulty spikes up and down all the fucking time because of these newly added monsters. So it's a problem.
6 new monsters just 1 month later, and then 3 more a month after that. Wilds already feels like it needs endgame threats like its formidable Elder Dragons.
I would be very curious to see what this guy said about Rise, though, because this is a really good review. They've actually got somebody that knows what the fuck they're talking about, which is crazy for IGN. It's crazy for major publications. And I am very curious now as to what Asmongold's going to say, because, again, he doesn't have the history with the series like I do, and this guy obviously does. This is actually a surprisingly really good review. He's obviously not as blunt and direct and aggressive as I am in my criticisms, but I feel like we share a lot of the same opinions. He's just a little bit more forgiving, possibly because that's just his nature, but also because this is a major publication.
Push its limits. And if it instead only gets 1 returning monster in the first 3 or so months after launch, this could be a long wait until it's inevitable.
I mean, I'm glad that it's Mid-Zune and not fucking Zinogre again.
That all said, Wilds deserves credit for being what has got to be one of the most customizable games I have ever played.
Hey, alright, you can customize the UI. I did this a lot in World, actually. I perfectly customized the UI to just do everything I want. Back when I used to play that game, I just had everything set on the controller really, really well. It took me a little bit to get used to it, because it was different to how I'm used to playing Monster Hunter. But still, like, it ended up for the better. This is really nice. This is really nice. I like this. This is great.
Of accessibility features. You can adjust the size of or turn off individual elements on your UI. You have more control than ever over your menus and radio wheels, and you can alter the look of stuff like
that is something I'm going to do after I've had a few hours in the game. Like, if there's anything on the UI that annoys the shit out of me, I'm going to mess around with that a little bit. That's going to be something I do later on in the game. Also, I think this thing is really fucking cool. I don't like the mount thing. Now, admittedly, the reason why they added mounting is because people have been asking for 2 things in Monster Hunter for years. They have been asking to ride the monsters, and they have been asking to fight alongside the monsters. People have been asking for this stuff ever since, like, Gen 3, as far as I can remember, right? People have been asking about this shit for ages, which is, I think, why we got the Monster Hunter Story series, because they were essentially testing the waters to see if that's something people would actually want to do. So, you know, so I think, and they have slowly done that. I think Rise went too far with the mounting. The mounting kind of like slowed the combat down a little bit too much. It wasn't fun. It was annoying. And that was also one of the reasons why I think Rise was so bare bones, because they had to make new animations for riding the monster. So every monster, on top of its basic animations, also needed riding on top of animations as well, which bogs down time. So the whole mechanic was just a colossal waste of time for me. I preferred how riding was done in, like, the older games. But it was a great mechanic that they added in 4U. But I do feel as if, yeah, it was a bit much later on down the line. I love this thing's design. Green and purple is my favorite color, so I approve of the colors he's given it. But I love this thing's design. Well, actually, green and brown are my favorite colors. Purple used to be my favorite color. It doesn't fucking matter. There's some brown in there anyway. No one cares about this. Why am I talking about it? But, I love this thing's design. I'm a huge fan of raptors. I like birds and feathers. Like, if I was going to design a raptor, it would look like this. I really like how this thing looks. But I also really like the Palamute as well in Rise, and I never used it as a mount. I never used it as a mount because it was just awkward to me. Yeah, you could run up the side of cliffs and whatnot. That was nice, but then I'd have to get into combat and get off it. It was awkward. I never used it, so we'll see where this goes. I am very neutral on this at the moment because I love the way it looks. I like the idea of getting armor for it and upgrading this as well on top of the Palico, which actually might be why armor upgrades have reduced cost, because you'll be upgrading this and the Palico on top of yourself, so it makes sense. But yeah, I don't know whether I'm going to use it just yet. we'll see. But I do love the way it looks. So,
Like your mount, chat stickers, and even fast travel text.
Yeah, I've seen the kind of things people have been making with the chat stickers, and the fact that none of that is censored is crazy to me, and I love it. I remember playing Monster Hunter Tri on the Wii, and I couldn't say after. So when I was playing online with other people, I couldn't type after. So like, hey, after this, do you want to hunt bloody bloody blah? I actually bought a keyboard to plug in specifically for the Wii just to play Monster Hunter with, right? To chat with other people. And after was censored because after means anus or something in German. Seriously. So the fact that they seem to be getting rid of this like bot censorship is amazing. It also means that their stickers are actually going to be fun for a change. I used to meme with my friend while playing this with him. But the fact that people are going to create like these gross, offensive, disgusting meme stickers, I think is awesome. That's the kind of thing that's going to bring the community together and have a big laugh over. There are going to be people online basically showing their most offensive, most disgusting fucking stickers. I think that's awesome. A lot of people aren't going to like this because, like, obviously horrible things are going to be said, but to me, this is a little glimmer of, like, what old school gaming used to be online that we're getting a little bit back of, where people have the freedom to be offensive and gross to one another. And to me, that is something that actually brings the community together rather than separating. The more things are censored, the less we can communicate, then the worse the community is. Like, being free to be gross and offensive is a good thing that brings people together, in my opinion. So I actually really like this. I love the customization. This is awesome. Entirely unnecessary, but this is cool. And hopefully we can unlock more things as we go along, and it adds to the reward system. This is great. This is awesome.
Hence, to a surprising degree. As a crowning touch, you can finally wear any version of each armor set too, essentially doubling the cosmetic options previously available. As
Very nice.
The all-important fashion side of things.
Hell yeah! This is one of the best things that the series added. They added fashion hunter to the series, like Fashion Souls, but you can do it as form of a transmog. Oh my god, that must be from that spider dragon. Sorry, that spider, the little rose. It's a sword and shield, obviously, but that's so fucking cool! Oh my god! I hope it has a great sword. I can't wait to see, dude. I am so excited for that monster. That monster is like the main reason I got excited for this game and decided to pre-order it. That spider is so fucking cool. I might actually get one of the little figures of that. The only thing I have up there is felines, Raffleses, Raffians, and I also have... Oh, I have the amiibo of the fucking Rise flagship. And I also have the flagship of Monster Hunter 4U as well, which is my favorite one in the series. I haven't got a Narga Cougar figure. I need to get one of those. But, yeah, I may end up getting a figure of this little spider, because I just love this thing's design so much, and it looks like such a cool fight. So I am super excited to play that fight. That shield is obviously from that hunt. Like, the rose shield with the spike. Oh, that's so cool. I can't wait to see the rest of the armor, man.
Partying up online has also been made more robust, letting you run around each map with your friends and seamlessly flow from hunt to hunt without having to regroup at camp between each mission. And even if you're...
I will say, for all the complaints I have of the change, I do think it will be better for multiplayer. I'm a solo player. I've been playing this game solo for years. It wasn't until the Wii U that I finally was able to play with a friend. I convinced a friend to play. So that means Monster Hunter, PlayStation 2, Monster Hunter Freedom, Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, Monster Hunter Freedom 2, Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, Monster Hunter Tri, the 3DS version of Monster Hunter Tri, I think, and then what came first? It will be it would be Monster Hunter 4, and then finally Monster Hunter 3U. I'm pretty sure. So like 5, 6, 7, 8, like the 8th game in the West, something like that, was finally when I was able to get a friend to play with me and finally able to enter G rank. And that is some of my most precious gaming memories, playing that with him, like watching him learn how to play and get better and better and better. He's a good player now. Another one of my friends started playing it with World, and he got pretty damn good at it as well because he's a solo player. I did play with him a little bit. But obviously, because of he's in Africa, so like he couldn't afford online all the time. But like, you know, latency things and whatnot. But no, it's I will say the changes here might make multiplayer a little bit better, because I think we've all experienced that thing in which one person is left on a quest and like left the rest of the group behind. I've done that. Or where one person wasn't ready and everyone but that one player was went on the hunt, you know? So at least with this, it might actually make multiplayer a bit seamless. And this is where my opinion means less, because as much as I like the play-by-play of prepare, hunt, return, upgrade, prepare, hunt, return, upgrade, as much as I like that step-by-step process, I am a solo player, and Monster Hunter is fundamentally a co-op experience, right? This is why I have never complained about being unable to solo the higher-end content in the older games, because it wasn't meant to be soloed. The only reason I even got good at this game was because I took on, like, not G rank, I never reached G rank, but I took on like high rank online content on my own. And this was back when they were tuned for multiple people. In World, you could do that because it was tuned based on how many people were in the fight. But in the older games, it was tuned for multiplayer, so they were considerably tougher. And it was a DPS race, essentially. And that's how I got better at the series, because I was taking on things that were, quite frankly, not meant for one player. But yeah, it is a good change, I think, for multiplayer. And that's what Monster Hunter is. It's a co-op game. So, regardless of my opinions, it might actually be better for the game. Also, I see the Scout Flies have returned, by the looks of it. Not really a big fan of them.
Largely planning to play solo, there are quality of life changes here for you too. That could be the surprisingly competent AI support hunters that fill empty spots in your party.
This was something my friend from Africa told me about, because I never played Sunbreak. This was something that is introduced in Sunbreak, and he knew that this was something I would like, because they're essentially an extra palico. So not only are you bringing along your cats, but you're also bringing along like NPC hunters, and as you bring them along, your relationship with these hunters get better, and eventually they'll teach you things or unlock things for you. I actually think that's a really fun system. I like the sound of that. I never did it in Sunbreak because I never played Sunbreak because Rise upset me too much. But I did buy Sunbreak on Steam for sale. One day I'll play it. I'll give it a go, and we'll see if my opinion changes on Rise. That might be interesting. It might be a case of, like, in its initial iteration, it's bad, but if you go in later on down the line, it's actually a much better experience. That actually might be... I didn't hate Rise. I just ended up hating it over time because of the monetary stuff and like how bare bones the game was. So we'll see. Yeah, my friends told me about the companion system that they added in Sunbreak, and I actually really like the sound of that. I think that's cool. It adds a bit more variation in hunts. And yeah, like one of the best additions Monster Hunter made was adding the feline companions. They initially came in the third PSP game. Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, which was the best game in the series at the time. Freedom Unite was amazing. That was the game that introduced the Nargacuga, which became my second favorite monster, so you can tell that this is a game that I'm particularly fond of. It also added a bunch of new weapons. I think Freedom Unite was where we got the bow, as well as the longsword, and a few others, if I remember correctly. The hunting horn as well, if I remember right. Correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a while. But they also added the feline companions. You could get, I think, one of them back in the day, and these guys accompanied you. And before Freedom Unite, you were on your own, or you were with other players, but you were on your own otherwise. There were no feline companions. And then much later on, I think it was World, it may have been earlier, much later on, they renamed the feline companions Palicos, which is a good change because it gives them a more interesting name than these are the race of felines. They are your companion. They are the feline companions. Palico is a much better name. So the Palicos became a staple of the series and part of the enjoyment for me as a solo player, because they made the more challenging fights a little bit easier because I had a distraction with the Palico. And then Try gave us Cha-Cha, and then Free You, Try You gave us Kayomba on top of that. And Cha-Cha and Kayomba actually made that game considerably easier because you had like 2 distractions that could both provide buffs and do specific things on top of everything else. So the companion system is something I've always enjoyed as a solo player. So adding NPC companions that can unlock things and you can improve your relationship with them, I think that's a really cool system, and I'm looking forward to experience that the first time with this game.
An SOS flare, but also the inclusion of an online single-player option that lets you fire flares to get help, but still pause the action entirely before you do.
I like that. It's cool.
Monster Hunter Wilds continues to smooth off the rougher corners of the series in smart ways, reducing as much friction as possible that could get in the way of you grabbing any of its exceptionally fun weapons, and
I'm in two mind of this, because here's the thing with quality of life changes. Quality of life changes usually come at a cost of dumbing down mechanics. Now, World did this, and I approved of pretty much all of them, although I think the paintball system changing into the Scout Flies is still a bit shit. I'm not a fan of the Scout Flies. But yeah, mainly because of the camera issues with the Scout Flies. If it wasn't for the camera issues with the Scout Flies, I'd have no problem with them whatsoever. So hopefully they fix that in this. But yeah, we'll see what he says here, but it does get to the point where you're dumbing down the game too much. Like, there's clearing out bloat, there's fixing jagged edges, and there's, like, ruining the experience, so we'll see.
And planting them firmly in a monster's hide. But in that quest to make Monster Hunter more approachable, Wilds is sliced a little too close to the bone in some places.
That is what I was frightened of. I like this reviewer. I do like this reviewer.
Trimming its challenge back so much that I barely needed to engage with its in-depth equipment system at all this time to become
That's a shame, man.
Predator. It's more flexible.
Admittedly, though, I was like this in World as well, where I didn't really bother with... in World, I didn't upgrade my armor anywhere near as much as I typically do. I didn't need to make as many weapons. Like, I just didn't need to upgrade anywhere near as much. And like I said, the only time I needed to change my style was against the Kirin. And that was it. So I'm also the kind of person that doesn't use bombs or flash grenades or sonic grenades or anything like that outside of very specific fights that I have a bit of a history with. So yeah, so I make the game like artificially harder for myself anyway by not using a lot of these tools at my disposal. So it's a bit weird. I'm not really a fan of that. Like, again, I don't play these games for challenge. But dumbing it down to... As long as the game still has that satisfying combat, then I'm good. But I just hope that it doesn't dumb it down too much to the point where it's basically Skyrim, you know? Like, Skyrim is fun. I enjoy Skyrim. I'm not hating on Skyrim. I love Skyrim. Skyrim is an amazing, cozy game experience. But I'm not looking for a cozy game in Monster Hunter, you know what I mean? I'm not looking for, like, fucking Sekiro either, but I am looking for, like, a game I can lose hours into and be satisfied with, you know what I mean? So
combat is still some of the most fun I've had with the series.
Yeah,
like the blustering...
see, that's good, that's good. He's still saying that the core combat, despite the game being easy, the core feel of the combat is still amazing. So I don't think it's something that'll bother me too much.
Lightning storms of its gorgeous desert, it burns brightly but briefly until Capcom unleashes some real endgame beasts to challenge us. For more, check out our reviews of Avowed or Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii.
I didn't even see the score. I don't really care about that. Oh. They gave it an 8. That's pretty good. I think that is reasonable for a modern Monster Hunter game. It's really good. It's still one of the most unique game franchises out there. So much so that it created its own genre, much like the Dark Souls series. It created its own genre. The Monster Hunter is its own genre now. We've got things like God's Eater, we got Tokaiden, and so on and so forth. Tokaiden I really love. That was a great game. So yeah, like we've got... I think that's a reasonable score for a good game with a few glaring issues, but I do feel like the majority of the issues in this game are going to be for old school fans, which thankfully this guy sounded like he definitely was. So, yeah, I turned fucking 10.5 minutes into... How long? But I am, as I say, I love Monster Hunter. I've loved Monster Hunter for a long time. It has been my favorite franchise for a long time. I have grown up playing these games, and there is nothing like it. The closest, in my opinion, is Tokaiden Age of Demons, and Tokaiden Age of Demons is fucking phenomenal, and I really like the spirit ancestor or whatever it is system from that game. Tokaiden is amazing, but nothing comes close to Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter is just one of the most unique experiences you can ever have. And even the only game in the series I shit on, Rise is bad, but it's still better than like most AAA games that come out, right? The major issue with Rise is its overly flashy mechanics. It's the fucking birds, the riding being a bit bloated, and the major issue being the microtransactions. It was a bare bones experience that was full of so many microtransactions that it added up to the cost of the game itself about 3 or 4 times over. You would be spending hundreds if you bought all the just cosmetic microtransactions, which were largely things that used to be standard in the series that you used to get for free. Monster Hunter used to be a series in which you bought the game and you had months worth of content right from the get-go, and now you don't. I absolutely hate how Monster Hunter has become a live service series rather than a series that releases complete, but this is just the nature of AAA games now, unfortunately, and Monster Hunter couldn't survive it for a while. I think it's very tragically poetic that Monster Hunter started going downhill the moment it was finally recognized in the West, and it was finally recognized in the West because Monster Hunter World was the first game in the series to have modern graphics. What is wrong with the gaming industry? It's the gamers. We can blame the industry as much as we want, but all the industry is doing is exploiting the stupidity of the customers. Let's be honest. If the customers were more discerning, the industry would have to change in order to keep up with it. So, yeah, it's bit of a problem, but I don't know. To me, Monster Hunter has always been a series where the developers look for what works and what doesn't. They wanted to add more freedom of movement to the series, so in Generation 3 they added swimming, and unfortunately that had the opposite effect. So they went back to the drawing board, and in Generation 4 we got the climbing, the jumping, and the mounting, and that was the change they needed. And since then, they have been doing the same thing. They have been trying to iterate and expand on mechanics that they've come up with, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Rise was an example in which many of these mechanics didn't work. So my hope was that they've taken this feedback from many of the players and they're making a better experience. I hope they're just not going back to Monster Hunter World and just recreating that again. And with the tender system, it might be another return of the Clutch Claw system, which I'm like I've said, I'm predicting that's going to be a problem in future patches when it becomes mandatory to play the game focused on tenderizing these areas, just like it was in Iceborne. So, yeah, that could be a problem again. But Monster Hunter is definitely a series that historically learns from its mistakes and tries to improve it next time. Monster Hunter Wilds looks like a really, really good game. It looks way better than Rise. I'm going into it this time knowing that I'm going to be pissed off with the obvious microtransactions that are going to come into the game. I am going to do my best to not buy any of them and not contribute to the problem that I hate so much. But yeah, it is one of those things, unfortunately. It looks like an amazing game. I did cave. I did buy it. I'm ready to play it when it comes out. But I said that I wasn't going to do it, but that fucking Spider-Man, it looks so good. The game looks so good, but I'm also very, very worried about it. This, however, as somebody who has been playing the game since it's the get-go in the West, at the very least, this was a really, really good review. They've obviously got the right guy to cover this. This guy is obviously a veteran. You can tell by how he's talking about the game. He knows what he's talking about. He's just a lot softer than I would be. So I have hopes that this is going to be a very enjoyable game with some business practices that I really fucking hate and the typical live service bullshit that will possibly ruin the game later on down the line. But hopefully, much like with Iceborne, that'll be in, like, expansion time. So if I don't expand the game, I might be okay, but we'll see. Anyway, this has been an incredibly long-winded video. Of course it is. It's me talking about Monster Hunter, and Monster Hunter is my baby. I hope you've enjoyed. If you've watched the whole thing, you are a mad lad. Thank you very much. I will see you next time.